You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there. Welcome to episode 42. Well, where to begin with this topic? To say that last week was a heavy one and full of charged emotions would be an understatement. Before I dive in, I want to share with you a little productivity secret of mine that I implemented in December. I carved out time one day and knocked out 4 podcast episodes, recorded them all, queued them up to publish weekly, and then really enjoyed the extra time I had created for myself the rest of the month. It was glorious. And why am I even telling you this? How does this affect you? It doesn't really. Only in the sense that I honestly had planned to do it again in January in order to free up my focus for getting more interactive, as I mentioned in my Happy New Year episode. The thing is, I hadn't gotten far enough in my planning to make recording a batch of episodes a reality yet. That left me with space to have further reflections last week. See what I did there? Reflecting on moments of the week. Isn't it cool how that works? And I honestly believe that I needed that. It's like it was supposed to happen this way, you know? Haven't I said that a few times? I'm pretty sure that I have. If this is your first episode, I'm glad you're here. And I can assure you that I do talk about everything happening the way it's supposed to. It's something I like to remind myself of often, especially when bad things happen. Now, on this podcast, I don't always talk about current events. And when I do, it's coming from a place of ensuring that I can frame the conversation in a way that it can still be relevant years from now. Because another thing that I say is, I'm not going anywhere. You may be finding this well after an event that I'm talking about has come and gone. I happen to believe that that's just fine because you will have lived through that event with me. You'll know what I'm talking about, and you may be able to apply it to a current circumstance in your life. Or you will be better prepared to manage your emotions around the next catastrophe that happens in your world. That is my goal when I bring these topics here. So let's do this. Today, I'm going to touch on the insurrection that occurred at our nation's capital, in the actual Capitol building on January 6th, 2021. I have a lot of thoughts about what happened, as I'm sure you do. Yes, we're going there, because it's important. This isn't sounding off on social media about who's right and who's wrong, stoking further division, or playing into any narratives. This is going to be about taking a step back and really identifying and separating what is true circumstance, that part of the story that is completely neutral, from your thoughts about what happened. Because when bad things happen on a national scale, it can feel really dark around you. And you may find it hard to be lit up with purpose and clarity and meaning regarding your place in all of it. You may be overwhelmed with all of your thoughts and emotions about it all. Before I go further with this, let me explain what I mean about bad things, because you may have heard me say that The good or bad in anything is determined by how an individual assigns meaning to a circumstance or a major event, such as the insurrection. One of my mentors, Brooke Castillo, has used 9/11 as an example of this in the past. It may seem as if no other event in recent history is more fully loaded than 9/11, and also that almost every American citizen would agree this is bad. In fact, bad isn't nearly a strong enough term. Yet, the event itself is a neutral circumstance. Planes flew directly into the Twin Towers and they later fell. These are the facts. In order to find all of the ways to be onto ourselves, we have to get really good at separating the facts from our stories. So when you are processing something bad that has happened, keep it simple. One sentence of only facts that everyone would agree on. All of the strong emotions that we felt from this came from our thoughts about it. The rage, the anger, the despair, the grief, and everything else that you felt when this happened. Why is the destruction of the towers neutral? Because there were other people in the world who had vastly different thoughts that generated feelings of elation, celebration. This was the desired outcome. They were happy about it. It was a good thing. I'm not getting into any conspiracy theories over 9/11 either. That's not what this is about. People are free to choose to believe what they want to believe, and that cannot be easily changed. They have to choose new beliefs for themselves. They have to find the willingness and desire to do it on their own. This cannot be forced. Which leads me back to the insurrection and why it's so difficult for many of us to process. This was not an attack by a foreign entity. This attack was led by our fellow Americans, our friends and neighbors, and for some, maybe even members of our own families, by people who firmly believe they are doing the right thing, by people who see it as a good thing that happened. That's what makes the event itself a circumstance that is neutral until your thoughts come into play. For those of us who are feeling shock, outrage, frustration, grief, fear, and all of the other heavy emotions, we need to recognize that we are viewing it as a bad thing that happened, a very bad thing. Today I'm talking to those of you who view the insurrection as a bad thing. If you are not one of those people, then replace that event with something that seems to compel you into one or more of the emotions that I've just mentioned: shock, outrage, frustration, grief, fear, or anything else that doesn't feel good. To be clear, I'm not trying to remain neutral myself about this event. I have personally designated it as something bad, and I'm keeping all of my thoughts in support of that. I'm not going to be swayed to an alternate view. And that's important not only to acknowledge, but to remember, to keep top of mind when you're attempting to have conversations with those who hold opposite viewpoints, values, and beliefs. I firmly believe that our failure to be able to do this is further feeding the polarization in this country. And you know I do not like to use the term failure, but that is what this is. This, air quotes, being the simple acknowledgement that everyone else doesn't think exactly what you think or believe what you believe, and that this can be okay. It should be okay. Yes, I'm making a judgment here. It really should be okay to hold opposing viewpoints, values, and beliefs. However, we all have lines that can't be crossed. We all have our boundaries. We all have our limits. And this event in particular serves as an example that I'm unable to ignore simply because it would be less controversial to do so. It was not lost on me. even as I watched the attack on the Capitol unfold, that had this been a mob of black and brown people, there would have been a much different outcome. That is my thought, and I'm keeping that thought. That's also an important distinction that I will remind you of. You always have the choice. When you find the thoughts that are driving your emotions, you have the choice to accept or reject them. And if you choose the latter, then you can explore the possibilities of new thoughts to think. However, if choosing new thoughts would be counter to your deeply held values and beliefs, ones that you are unwilling to compromise, then you accept them just as they are, and you also accept all of the emotions that come as a result of anything that seems to be an attack on those values. For example, my deeply held values and beliefs are that all humans are created equal and should be treated as equals by those who make and uphold the laws. There are, of course, many more that come into play with this scenario in particular, but that's an example of a deeply held value and belief that I will not be swayed from. What I really want to get into today is the emotional fallout from the insurrection, or insert your current event here. Because what I see is that those who view it as a bad thing are falling into fear, anxiety, and tension in the aftermath of it all. I want you to notice that I'm not getting into right or wrong. It isn't right to feel bad and wrong to feel good, or vice versa. For the sake of this conversation, let's just keep it to where our minds go when we assign meaning to something that happened as being a bad thing. Our thoughts start to spin. What's next? What happens now? Will there be consequences? Will justice be served? And the fire inside of you is a white-hot rage, not the shining beacon of joy that fuels you in so many positive ways. We are catastrophizing on a grand scale, my friends. Check out episode 32 if you need a refresher on this. There's a reason I used the title that I did, Catastrophizing the 2020 elections and beyond. There will always be something for our brains to latch onto and create thought spins around. Always. Now, for the title of this episode, I used how to feel. You may have taken that to mean I'm going to tell you how to feel today. Well, yes, probably not in the way that you think. Because notice, I didn't say what to feel. I said how to feel. What I'm going to advise that you do is truly feel whatever it is that you are feeling. First, I want you to acknowledge that the event itself is neutral. Keep it factual. It's a thing that happened. Yes, some people died. Property was destroyed. Facts. I know this may sound cold, but it's simply what happened without the story your mind creates around it. Each of us have our own story about the insurrection. Those stories are created from our thoughts. Those strong, sometimes visceral emotions we are feeling come from our thoughts about what happened. And I think there is a collective undercurrent of fear for most of us. Fear of losing something which drove the insurrectionists to act. Fear of what's going to happen next from those of us who view what happened as an act of domestic terrorism. Yes, it's fucking frightening to witness. Acknowledge that. I'm not here to tell you not to be outraged. I'm not here today to tell you not to be afraid, though I am going to offer you a bit of insight around fear. All I want you to do is acknowledge that you are creating those emotions, not anything anyone else has done, not any event that has happened or could happen. When I say I'm going to show you how to feel, it's not about, just pick a new thought to think and generate a better feeling for yourself. That's not how intentional thinking is meant to be used, in my viewpoint. Remember, you get to choose whether to keep your thoughts based on your own values and beliefs. There is a process of noticing that subconscious thought and the swirl of anxiety in your gut. You have to sit with it, spend some time with it, have a little visit. I've used the analogy of an unwanted guest showing up at your front door with an overnight bag that indicates that she plans to stay a while, and you say, "Oh, hell no," and slam the door. Then you go back to doom scrolling on Twitter, trying to see if there's anything breaking at this hour because you want to get as far ahead of the next catastrophe as possible. And about an hour later, your unwanted guest is beating on your door again. And this time you choose to ignore it altogether. That bitch will eventually get tired of knocking and leave, right? Wrong. This will go on for hours, days, weeks, on, until you allow that feeling, represented as the unwanted guest, to come inside your house, have a seat, and visit. The thing is, it's the last thing that you want to do. The thing is, it's the only way to get to the other side of the pain. You have to feel it, really feel it. Visit with it, have a conversation, inquire, why are you here? And here's the really jacked up part of this idea of fully feeling your negative emotions. Many studies have shown that when you acknowledge your emotion and really feel into it deeply, it only lasts for, on average, 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Then you are free. Now, I have found that this activity takes patience, practice, and focused attention. Think about when you are visiting with someone, like really visiting with someone that you really want to be with, and all you get is a couple of minutes. Hopefully you won't be looking at your phone or listening to the TV as background noise or anything else. I know for me, I would be making eye contact and really listening, hanging on every word. That's what you need to do with yourself. You need to get to a quiet place, free from distractions, so you can examine those thoughts. What's going on in there? And when you've identified the thoughts, I want you to close your eyes, breathe into your body, and pay close attention to the sensations that you feel, the physical sensations. Where is it located in your body? Your gut? Your chest? Your throat? How does it feel? Heavy, light, swirly? Does it have a color? Most importantly, does it have a name? Name your emotion. Brené Brown talks about this a lot, especially in the area of shame. Name it. Is it really fear, or is it anxiety, rage, helplessness, sorrow? Hello, rage. I see you. Chances are, once you acknowledge and name that emotion you're feeling, the faster it's going to move right on. These emotions that we have are signals that something needs to be addressed. Yet we will fight tooth and nail to avoid those signals because it seems like it would be so awful to feel them all the way through. And it really isn't awful, I promise. The more you practice this exercise, as with anything else, the better you will get at it. Please try this. Breathe. Get quiet. Go inward. Identify the emotion. Feel into it. Acknowledge it. What is it trying to tell you? I truly believe that if more humans on this earth would visit with their negative emotions, instead of trying to suppress them and then lashing out on others, the human collective would be in a much better place, a calmer place, a more grounded and centered place. I also want you to write your thoughts down with pen and paper. Give yourself as much time as you need to really focus in on what is disturbing you. The connection of actually writing out your thoughts instead of typing supports that focused attention that you need. Don't type it, write it. And again, this isn't journaling. Just let the words pour out of your brain just as they are coming, just as they are. Don't censor, don't edit, don't worry about sentence structure and punctuation. No one else is going to see this. This is just for you. This is an exercise in awareness of self. After you do this, check back in with your feelings. Where are they now? I like to think of our emotions as parts of ourselves that simply want to be seen and acknowledged. And we often put some version of this onto others. We want to be seen by someone else, recognized, perhaps even embraced, honored. We need to do this with our own emotions that represent the parts of ourself that want to be seen. See yourself without judgment, but with loving kindness. Repeat these exercises as often as you need to. Get quiet, go inward, and explore your feelings. Name them. Identify the sensations in your body as you feel them. Do a thought download and write it out. Now, what to do about the constant media consumption? Many of us have a hard time looking away because we want to know where the danger is. What beast is lurking around the corner waiting to pounce? How can we be ready for it? Recognize this is your basic instinct driving your behaviors. We want to avoid pain. We want to ensure we are prepared for all of the scary scenarios. Remind yourself that you cannot see into the future. You can never know what is going to happen in the next week, the next day, the next hour. How is it serving you to doom scroll on social media in order to be the first to know of the next threat to your safety? It isn't serving you. It isn't serving any of us. What we have to do is remind ourselves that we are safe right now, in this moment. I am safe. I am okay. I have some emotions to work through, yes. Otherwise, I am safe in this moment. Make it your mantra if you have to. I am safe in this moment. Bring your thoughts back to your immediate surroundings. Redirect your focus to those things that you can control. You have no control over what happens in the world around you. You do have control over the choices that you make in each moment of each day. Choose more self-care. Choose to take a long walk outside. This is one of the most therapeutic things we can do for ourselves. Listen to your favorite music. Uplifting is preferred. Do your favorite exercise. Find a balance between moving your body and being still. Do a guided meditation to quiet your thoughts for a few moments. I'm telling you, even after a short 10 minutes, I always come out the other side of a meditation feeling calmer. We are going to need to call on all of these areas of self-care for the foreseeable future. We are still in a raging pandemic worldwide. I have friends in other countries that I communicate with often, and I can assure you that it's no better there in terms of the global outbreak and vaccine distribution. Balance your need to know what's going on in the world with honoring yourself, taking care of yourself, and reminding yourself that you are safe in this moment. These are all acts of love. Seek more of that, because fear and love cannot live in the same space. The way to calm your fears is through acts of love. Find what those acts of love are for you and make them a priority each day. Prioritize your acts of love over the doom scrolling or news channel surfing. Finally, I want to come back to the notion that everything happens as it's supposed to. And sometimes this can be a real struggle for us because we want to find the meaning behind the bad thing that is happening or that has already happened. We feel a need to know why. We think that if we can get to the why behind a tragedy, that we can prevent future occurrences. So our brains try to apply logic and reason and ask, Why are people assaulted, terrorized, and murdered? Why do bad things happen in the world around us, in our communities, in our own lives? The answer is because they do. Because they always have, and they always will. Maybe with time, the answers will come to us, and maybe they won't, because life is a contrast of beautiful and horrible. Your role in living this beautiful, messy life is not to have all of the answers. It is not to fully understand all of the whys. Your role in living this beautiful, messy life is to fully understand yourself. We are being presented with so many opportunities at this point in time to do just that. Every awful thing that happens is an opportunity for each of us to go inward and explore what it means to be human. We are given opportunities to make new choices with how we are spending our time here on earth. It may not seem like it right now, but that is a gift. The gift of personal growth and building your resiliency through a deeper understanding of self. As Rumi says, these pains you feel are messengers. Listen to them. I want you to know that I did this episode for me as much as I did it for you. I've been feeling some deep and painful emotions myself. I have been out on one of those walks of mine and suddenly been overcome with intense feelings that brought me to tears, like ugly cry tears just coming from seemingly nowhere. And that's okay. Crying is a release. Screaming is a release. Punching something, not someone, is a release. Feel your feelings and honor your body's need to release them. When I met with my coach the other day, I was telling her how exhausted I was from processing my emotions. It wasn't just the insurrection either. There was a local tragedy a couple of days prior that shook me to my core. So I was already in a vulnerable state in the days leading up to January 6th. In the perfect example of being called on my own bullshit, she said, if you were really feeling your feelings, you wouldn't be exhausted. The exhaustion is coming from your resistance. If you had fully processed them, you would feel light and free. Damn, that was a truth bomb, if there ever was one. And so I took that hard realization of mine and I got to the work of facing the ugliness. I'm still doing it. And the result of that work is this episode. And so I hope that you find it helpful in dark times. I will close with a quote from my friend Jesse Lifeson. You can find him on Twitter with the handle Do You Even Life, and that's L-I-F, no E. Jesse's words came exactly when I needed them. He wrote, if it seems very dark and toxic and sad around and you can't seem to find any light, that's a sign. You are, in fact, the light needed to illuminate the path you are walking on. It has been you all along. Indeed. What a perfect reminder. Okay, this has been a heavy episode, and we are living in heavy times. So just another demonstration from me that there is no topic I'm afraid to tackle. Realize that whatever happens next is going to happen. Focus on your life. Acknowledge that you are safe in this moment and that you have control of your thoughts. Above all, remember, fear and love cannot live in the same place. I am sending you love through my words today. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend or leave a review on Apple Podcasts to give others a better chance of finding it too. Yes, you are, in fact, the light needed to illuminate the path you are walking on. So light up, shine on.